Hey everyone, I'm excited to show you something that's going to change how you think about testing Salesforce and everything around it. At Provar, we make it easy to test the hardest thing to test, and that's Salesforce. But we're not limited to just that. You can use Provar to test everything else too. Various different web applications, generic web services such as REST and SOAP-based APIs, database connections, and email servers such as Google and Microsoft. We also support single sign-on Zephyr integrations, and last but not least, our Salesforce connections. So whether you're testing a simple login or an end-to-end quote-to-cash process, we've got you covered. Now I'll show you Provar in action by creating a new scenario in a Salesforce org. We'll begin by creating a normal Salesforce connection, giving it a name, defining our username, and our password. We'll define our Salesforce environment appropriately, and then we can test our connection before saving it. Now, right away, this connection is reusable across all of our test cases, and we can parameterize it. Since it's an admin connection, we can also utilize this connection to log in as other users in our org to quickly accomplish profile testing, a big differentiator for Provar. We can also create different test overrides for different Salesforce orgs, which gives us the capability to quickly log into all of our Salesforce orgs without having to create a bunch of different connections or authenticate separately. So we can reuse this connection to swap between different environments simply by changing a configuration option inside of Provar. If we want to go to Dev, we select Dev, QA, and so forth. So let's begin by creating a new test case now using that new connection. We're going to create and convert a lead. We'll utilize our existing connection that we just created, and we can select an application from our Salesforce application list. Now, right away, we're seeing how the metadata integration with Salesforce is coming into play with Provar. This list is pulled from our org and from the user that we're authenticated as. So we can select our Sales Lightning app and click Finish. This will create a new test case for us and launch our test builder session with a single test step, Salesforce Connect. This Salesforce Connect step takes care of a lot of things for us out of the box. Automatically, it will log us into our Salesforce org based on our user that we've authenticated as, and it will take us to the Sales Lightning app. Now, what you're seeing on the right-hand side is Provar Test Builder. Provar Test Builder is a no-code, point-and-click tool that allows you to quickly create automated tests for any application by interacting directly with your application's UI. So once this is loaded, we can continue on with our scenario. So we'll click on our new lead button here, and then we can right-click on our lead status and add that to our test case. This will load a step inside of Test Builder that's pre-configured that we can edit accordingly. We get different interaction types based on the element that we're interacting with, such as setting a field, clearing it, clicking it, and doing a validation. But we can also utilize Provar's AI capabilities to populate all the fields at once. This allows us to select multiple fields or all the fields. So we'll select a couple of fields here to populate as part of our test case. And we'll add all. This will generate test steps utilizing Provar's AI integration. And it will also utilize our test data generation behind the scenes to make sure that the data that's being generated is contextually aware of our Salesforce org. So that means it will select relevant values for all of our pick lists and any records that are reference fields inside of this form. We'll also see a navigation take place, which is another point of our Salesforce capabilities for testing. So we'll close out of this screen here and show you what that looks like. If I go back to the Salesforce Home tab here, we can show you how navigation works inside of Provar Test Builder. So if we right-click on any test step, we're able to step to that step immediately. Right away, this is a big capability that we have in terms of our differentiation between us and something like Selenium, where you would need to execute the entire test case and then do some code behind the scenes and then re-execute. With Provar, we can jump to any point in execution immediately. We can also step backwards to a previous step, resume and pause, step forwards, and abort our test session. Test Builder also gives you access to Provar's test palette, which is a host of different drag and drop commands that we have out of the box, such as looping, conditional logic, assertions, and our AI capabilities. So now that we've stepped backwards, we'll resume to show you how that navigation is happening. So it's going to automatically take us to that new lead screen before it begins populating all the fields. This is something that we didn't have to add as an actual step inside of our test case. Provar takes care of this for us automatically through our Salesforce integration. So we'll see it begin populating all the field information on the screen. In this way, Test Builder is an interactive test authoring tool, but it's happening in a way where it's executing our test steps while we're building them out inside of Test Builder. This gives us a lot of control of what we can do, and it gives us instant validation on our test flow before we actually save it and run it anywhere else. Now we'll show you how we can move things around and edit our existing test case. So we can drag and drop any step just by dragging and dropping it to any location in our test that we want. We can duplicate steps by clicking the clone option here and then moving them to another location. We can delete steps by selecting the trash can icon or by right-clicking and going to delete step. We can also rename steps if we want this to be something different, such as set the last name field. We can just say set last name, and that will change the name of our test step inside of Provar. And then lastly, we can group all of our test steps if we like. So we can highlight all the fields that we would like to group in a logical grouping, and then we can click Group Steps, and we'll give it a name, New Lead Fields. This creates a logical grouping for our test steps, and we can see how they're organized now inside of Test Builder. So we'll go ahead and jump to the end here, and we'll show you how we can edit our steps as well. So let's change our description here to be something a little bit different. We can change the value of any of our test steps and the interaction type if we wish. But for now, we'll just leave that as it is and save and do. And we'll see it re-execute the test step inside of the UI. Now we can map our save button to create this new lead. We'll leave the interaction type as the default and continue on. Now from here, we can add additional validations to our test flow. So we'll go ahead and add our validation for our data quality by right-clicking it and adding it to our test case. This is a formula field, so we may want to make sure that this value is equal to 3, based on the fields that we populate. We can also validate field labels inside of Salesforce, different validation messages on the screen, whether they're field or page level, and HTML attributes, such as making sure that the field is read-only, or whether or not it's inline editable, etc. But for now, we'll just leave an assert value in there, and we'll add and do that inside of our test case. I'll click over to the Activity tab because I want to show another point of navigation that Provar handles automatically, and that's the component and subtab navigation. So we'll see it change to the Details tab for us automatically before validating that data quality field. Another way that Provar is eliminating explicit steps in your test case and making testing a lot more intuitive inside of Salesforce. So we'll continue on by converting this lead to an account. We'll right-click on the Convert button here and click Add and Do to convert that lead. And the next screen, we'll go ahead and just click Convert again by mapping it once more. And there we go. We have a lead that's been converted to an account. Our full flow is now complete. We can right-click on the account name here to navigate to the account page if we want to do additional validations in the UI for that particular account view screen. Now, so far, everything that I've added inside of Test Builder has been default support for our Salesforce org. We haven't needed to interact with anything explicitly requiring locators or XPath or anything like that. And that's because of our metadata integration with the org. In this way, this keeps all of our tests much more robust over time, where Provar tests are not written, but they're actually rendered, depending on the Salesforce org that you're connecting to. In this way, all the locators are dynamic rather than being static. This allows us to be up to date with all the Salesforce releases to ensure our tests don't break. So here we can add additional validations, but for now, I'll go ahead and switch back over to automation so I can show you how we interact with Salesforce using our SOQL queries as well as an added layer of flexibility. So this is our test case that we've been working on. We'll expand our org browser here to take a look at our demo environment and the objects that are listed there. We'll search for our lead object and drag and drop that into our test case. This will prompt us for a standard CRUD operation or a custom SOQL query. So we'll select a create step here, and then we'll populate all the fields that we want. This will add a new step to our test case immediately. We can click on that step to edit it. So we'll set a last name here, and then we'll open up Provar's Content Assist where we can access some variables and functions inside of Provar to provide a unique ID for this particular last name field. Now we'll save this and we'll see it get added inside of Test Builder. So now we can drag and drop this to the beginning of our test case, and we can step to that step. Then rather than creating a lead through the UI, we've created it in a matter of moments through an API call. So now we can safely delete our new lead screen here. We'll go ahead and jump to the next section, and we'll just go ahead and get rid of this. So now we have a new lead that's being created through the API. That actually gives us an ID that we can utilize in our test step. So we'll go to where we're navigating and asserting that particular data quality field, and we'll update our ID here to reference our lead ID variable that gets created automatically. We'll set the navigation to navigate, and then we'll save our test step. We'll jump to that point in execution, and then we'll switch back over into Salesforce so you can see it happen in live time. So right away, it navigates directly to that lead that we just created through an API call. And our assertion will still be there, and the rest of our steps. So Provar will continue to execute, and we won't need to update any other steps in our test case. Everything will work as is. So right away, we have a test case, and we've shown you how we can utilize Provar's AI capabilities to populate and validate fields inside of Salesforce, how we utilize our metadata to handle navigation, record ID capturing, and mapping of elements. And we've also shown how we can execute a test case utilizing API and UI steps in the same flow. But that's not all. We can also take this test case and apply it to different environments. Now that we have a test connection for our Salesforce org, we can switch to different environments very quickly by switching over to our dev environment and then re-executing this test case and show how it works inside of our dev sandbox just the same. We can also create different overrides for different users by creating a new connection here and selecting this admin connection as our override. So if you're looking to build quality into your Salesforce development lifecycle, shorten your feedback loops on testing, and give your team confidence in every release, Provar is the answer for your Salesforce-centric testing purposes.